In war, armies are destroyed by bullets, bombs, and artillery. But in 1940, one German division was destroyed without a single shot being fired at it. No ambush, no battlefield massacre, no heroic last stand. It was erased by information. And the men who marched into that emptiness never knew they had already been defeated. Not by sabotage nor by mutiny, but by a steady stream of reports so convincing that maps were redrawn, timetables recalculated, and a fighting force marched confidently into vacuum without ever seeing the enemy. This is the story of how German intelligence trusted the wrong truth, and how deception became deadlier than any weapon. Early 1940, Europe balanced on a knife's edge. Inside the Abwehr, German military intelligence, a single source inside Belgium gleamed like gold. His reports were immaculate: exact bridge locations, precise Allied troop movements, defensive weak points, the timing of patrols down to the minute. Every line dovetailed with Luftwaffe reconnaissance photographs. Every message confirmed what planners already believed. To Berlin, he was a dream, an oracle behind enemy lines. To seasoned officers, perfection should have raised alarms. Nothing in war is that clean. But victory intoxicates, and no one questions success that flatters their plans. What Berlin did not know was this: months earlier, British counterintelligence had quietly taken ownership of the agent. MI5 didn't silence him. They didn't arrest him. They weaponized him. In intelligence, this is called a controlled channel. When the enemy believes the wire is theirs, but the current is yours. They let him keep his voice, then tuned it to their melody. Each report carried enough truth to anchor belief. Units that existed, bridges that stood, patrols that really marched. But the elements that mattered most were adjusted with a surgeon's hand. Units moved hours earlier than reported. Defenses were marked as strong where they were brittle. Empty zones were dressed up as key objectives. This wasn't random noise. It was crafted confidence. The British built a mirror that showed the Germans exactly what they wanted to see, until it showed them nothing at all. When the German advance began, confidence moved in formation with the panzers. Commanders believed they knew the enemy better than the enemy knew themselves. Columns roared forward toward bridges that, on paper, would be intact. They reached smoking gaps. Defensive lines that had been marked as bristling with guns lay abandoned. Sandbags slumped like stage props after a performance. Artillery positions pinpointed by grid were fields of churned mud. They advanced into absence, a battlefield that refused to meet them. Meanwhile, the real Allied forces, unseen within the shadows of the deception, shifted elsewhere. They prepared counter-movements the Germans never anticipated, because their maps were honest lies. There was no dramatic firefight to mark the moment. There was only confusion, orders rewritten on the fly, fuel wasted, momentum bled away. A division wasn't defeated, it was delayed, diverted, and finally dislocated from the fight. Inside the Abwehr, the math stopped adding up. Reports had been internally consistent. The source had been reliable for too long. To admit a deception was to admit an institutional failure. And in a regime that punished failure, that truth was dangerous. So analysts argued, commanders hesitated, and headquarters waited for clarity that never arrived. In war, hesitation is fatal. By the time the picture shifted, the opportunity had passed. The division was withdrawn, reorganized, reassigned, its role written out of the operation it had been meant to decide. On paper, it lived. In reality, it had been neutralized by a file folder. Here is the brutal truth of intelligence warfare. The most dangerous lies are the ones that look exactly like the truth.
British intelligence did not beat that division with firepower, but with patience, psychology, and the manipulation of trust. This was an early blueprint for later master deceptions. The grand designs that would one day mislead Hitler himself about the beaches of Normandy. And it leaves a chilling lesson. You don't need to destroy an army. You only need to convince it to go the wrong way. No medals were issued. No graves were marked. The victory existed only in memoranda and silence. In our next episode, we meet a man who sold secrets to Hitler himself. One servant, one camera, and a betrayal that shook both sides of the war. In intelligence, the quietest weapons are often the deadliest.